So I'm going to talk a little bit about this neem oil. Now I did a video about a week ago because I did my final spraying of my fruit trees. I did the dormant oil and horticulture oil during the before the buds broke during the late winter, early spring. Then I did the copper fungicide spraying, and then I already did the neem oil spraying just last week. But I noticed when I came out here to take care of my plants here and cover up my blueberries and other things and my peas, I noticed there was 5 beetles on my apple tree. Now, as you can see, leaves are pretty good. There's very few leaves that have holes in them, right? So I got a few leaves that have holes in them, and that's just regular. You know, when I first started growing vegetables and trees, fruit trees, I used to kind of freak out anytime I saw a leaf that had a little bit of a few bite marks and other things on it. But it's normal to have a few leaves that you know, the bugs get at. It's when you have an infestation problem is when you know, you should really be worried. Now I don't have any sort of infestation problems, so I'm probably going to go ahead and hold off on the neem oil spraying. I just did it a week ago. Now, in the height of the growing season, if you see a lot of aphids or a lot of beetles, you can go ahead and spray once a week, every 7 days, 7 to 10 days. Now, it's only been a week, and I don't really have much of a problem. I've come through here and looked at this tree about 5 times today, and 3 out of the 5 times there was beetles and bugs on the leaves, and so I pinched them and killed them. Now, I don't have a problem with these lemon trees or my orange tree. Don't seem to have any bugs at all. I've gone through and taken a look at the leaves and never seen a bug on them yet. Now, the apple tree usually has the most, and then I just came through the pear tree and killed off 2 beetles that were sitting in the middle leaf. Also I saw 2 grasshoppers. One was flying around the tree, and one was on a leaf, and unfortunately I wasn't able to kill that grasshopper before it flew away. But yeah, it's a good idea to go ahead and check your trees out and your vegetables out on a regular basis, just to make sure that you don't need to do a spraying. Now, in the height of the growing season, as we get into summer months, there is a chance that there's going to be a lot of aphids underneath on the bottom side of the leaves of your fruit trees, especially apple and pear trees. I'm also worried about Japanese beetles and other beetle varieties as we get into the warmer months, especially what I call cucumber growing season. I end up getting hordes and hordes of beetles, so I do a regular neem oil spraying. I love neem oil because it's you know, all natural, and so of all the insecticides and pesticides you can use, that one is almost the most organic related. Now you can go ahead and go to some of these really high-end organic stores and get something even safer, or you can use some of that soap, organic soap, horticulture soap. But you know, I tried to use horticulture soap before, and unfortunately it didn't work at all. So I went ahead and stopped using horticulture oil. But going back to talking about neem oil, I use neem oil a lot on my pepper plants and tomato plants. What'll happen is as you get into the early summer months, tomatoes have a tendency to start getting these funguses and diseases that start off on the bottom leaves, and then they kind of start working their way up. And once you have a problem, it's hard to eradicate it. And so I just got in the mode these days, instead of dealing with these funguses that grow on the bottom of the tomato leaves or when the leaves get wet, and then start spreading all the way through the entire branch, and having a problem like that, I try to spray my tomato plants anywhere between every 7 to 14 days. I try to hold off as much as possible, and I do it every 14 days, but I notice in the summertime I end up spraying my tomato plants every 10 days to 7 days, which is perfectly fine. It says on the label that you can spray every 7 days or every week. My pepper plants aren't as much of a hassle or issue with insects and bugs and funguses. But if I do spray my tomato plants, what I do is any excess solution that I have after spraying my tomato plants. I go ahead and I'll take a look at how much solution I have left, and then I use the rest of the solution on all my pepper plants. But yeah, other than those issues with the fruit trees and the tomatoes, the rest of the garden isn't too much of a problem. It isn't until I get into the mid-season crops such as cucumbers and beans do I then get a beetle issue problem. So I usually will go ahead and I try to use a trellis or some poles to keep my cucumbers off the ground. And the beetles do show up in hordes a lot of times in hot summer days. And so what I do is I'll take the neem oil, and regularly once a week I will I usually go ahead and I will go ahead and pick a cool day. I'll pick a day that's under 70 degrees. I like to usually spray my neem oil late at night or early in the morning, but I prefer to do the nighttime so that way it sits on there throughout the night versus me putting it on really early in the morning and then ends up being a hot day that, you know, even if I look at the weather and say, let's say that it's going to be a 60-degree day and all of a sudden it turns around and ends up being a 75-degree day. So in order to avoid that, I typically go ahead and I will try to pick a day that that is going to be under 70 degrees, and I do it at night. Spray it down with neem oil, cucumber plants, bean plants, and then I'll go ahead and do my tomatoes first, and then anything left over I'll just spray extra on the I'll spray extra on the rest of the vegetables. But it isn't too much of a problem. I usually go ahead and I'm able to address, hold on here, I gotta deal with this bug. Okay, got it. So usually with the neem oil, I'll go ahead and spray my fruit trees twice a month. I spray them in the spring, and I'll spray them in the fall before I bring them inside or cover them up with the tarp. But because I saw a bunch of beetles and a couple grasshoppers on the fruit trees, on the pear tree and the apple tree, I'll go ahead and wait a few more days, and then I'm going to spray it again because obviously with this warm weather we're getting this week, we haven't had rain for quite a few days now, and we've been over 70, and I think they're projecting this Sunday they're going to project about 78 80 degrees, and so we'll have gone about 10 days without rain. And obviously there's a lot more bugs and grasshoppers and beetles around, so I'm going to go ahead and spray my fruit trees because they're establishing their foliage, and so I don't want to have any infestation problems. I want to go ahead and make sure that the new growth that's coming in isn't chewed up and eaten. Bugs do prefer to eat nice healthy new leaves, and so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and spray them down with neem oil solution in about 3 more days. I'll take a look at exactly how the leaves are doing over the next 2 or 3 days. I do come through the garden about a half a dozen times throughout the day, so I'll be able to take a look at exactly how many bugs are sitting on the leaves. Like I said before, most of the time that I came out here today and I looked at the leaves on the apple and the pear tree, there were beetles and grasshoppers on it. So they've been landing on it, and so I'm just going to head, and although there's not a real infestation problem, I mean there's only a few leaves on here that are getting bitten and eaten, but I'll go ahead and spray it down with neem oil in a couple more days, and then I'll periodically check on it and see how it is. I'm going to go ahead and monitor both of the plants this year because they tend to, they're putting out actually a lot more foliage, and they're a lot bigger than they were the previous period. So I'm going to go ahead and monitor it very closely. As you can see, this pear tree, most of the leaves are looking pretty nice and healthy. So I'm not too concerned, but as long as I'm going to go ahead and spray down the apple tree, I'll spray down the pear tree. It won't be harmful at all. So that's a little bit about the neem oil and how to use it. If you have any questions, just let me know.